actually record today? Like hit the record button? Or are we going to just do this for fun?
Oh my God, Jess, you make me so nervous. Now I'm like checking and double checking.
Hey, you make me nervous. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of It's Your Time to Shine, a podcast about being a mom in a modern world. My name is Jaspreet Kaur, and with me is my friend Lisa Vora. Hi, Lisa.
A very nervous Lisa Vora. Hi, everyone. We did a podcast once and I didn't hit record, so no one ever heard that one.
Was it only one? Did it only happen once?
It only happened once. It only happened once.
You know how my memory is. I really was asking.
Yeah, right. Maybe you just use your memory as like your facade, but you're actually making fun of me.
Maybe I actually record all of my conversations and I just play them back later and I can totally remember them. Wouldn't that be creepy if someone did that? They like recorded all of their conversations with someone?
That would be very creepy. And I don't ever want to know that if someone's doing that.
Yeah, totally. But that would be like really handy in marriage because I swear sometimes we have conversations and I'm like, that is not what we agreed to.
Oh my God, I need that like immediately, actually. One of the problems, and I love Samir, but when we fight, he forgets. He's got like amazing memory, right? He remembers anything he ever read and he can bring it up, any argument, political arguments, everything. But when it comes to fighting with me, he forgets what he says the second before.
That's so funny. That's like me.
Yeah, he does. And he will say like, no, Lisa, I'm not going to do that because you know, whatever. And then I'm like, you just said you're not going to do that. No, I didn't. I'm like, you just said it. I don't. And I sit there like, I don't even know what to say because you've literally forgotten what you said the second before.
That's hilarious. Maybe you need my kids think we have cameras inside our house because I said that once when they were really little. I was like, I'm going to check the camera when they were fighting about something.
That's a good idea.
Maybe you need to tell Samir you have cameras and you're going to play it back.
Maybe I need to actually do the cameras and play it back.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Speaking of marriage, okay, I was actually just online and I saw a funny meme. Mm-hmm. Marriage vows should always include, quote, do you promise to always help him find his stuff that's right in front of him because you'll be doing that for the rest of your life?
That's hilarious.
I was going to post that.
Yeah, you should totally post that. I was thinking about marriage the other night. I was talking to one of my friends and she's only been married. I think she's like in her first year of marriage. Mm-hmm. Got married a couple months ago. And we were just talking about communication and how sometimes communication breaks down, you know, when you first get married and you get in a fight or something. And she was asking me about that. And I was like, you know, communication is probably the thing that gets better over time when you get to know each other. And also the more fights you get in, probably the easier it is to just say what you want to say.
Oh, yeah. I think it's really important to fight in marriages. Like, I know a couple, they've been married for about 3 years. And he's like, we never fight. And I'm like, are you serious? And I'm like, there's something wrong with your relationship.
Sounds a little boring, actually.
They never fight. I know exactly what it is. He dominates. She just kind of like, you know, does whatever he asks. That's it. That's the marriage.
Oh, really?
And again, I'm not trying to, I sound all judgy like, oh, but seriously, a little fight here and there just for the makeup sex. Jeez.
Oh my gosh, you're so terrible. I think like that's interesting. Nobody wants to fight. Like, I don't think that's the goal. But obviously if you're not fighting, you're not having that, you got to guess that two people's views and opinions on things aren't going to be perfectly evenly matched every time, especially not for 3 years. So it kind of makes you think like, okay, what are they giving up? One of them's giving stuff up.
Yeah, they're independent ideas because you're right. No one is going to have the exact same set of ideas. So there's going to be conflict.
I heard this like TED Talk style speaker. It wasn't a TED Talk, but you know how sometimes that TED Talk like...
Yeah, they have a bunch of TED-like talks, yeah.
Yeah. So he talks about this concept like the price of admission, which like really resonated with me. So he's basically saying like his first couple years in a relationship, he had this pet peeve. Mm-hmm. And I think the pet peeve was his partner would make lunch and leave a knife with jelly on it on the counter as if like, oh, I'm going to use that later or something, you know, or leave a plate and a glass.
Right.
And then he would go like, are you done with this? You know, kind of thing. And like slam it into the sink, like all angry. And then he was talking about, then I realized like rather than getting annoyed and then making a big deal out of it, getting into a fight and then holding on to the resentment for a few hours, like I'm not going to talk anymore, or I'm going to hold this in or whatever it is. He was like, why don't I just put the thing away? I'll just put the dishes away and continue on. He was like, putting it away takes like 15 to 20 seconds. And he was like, and then I realized like, that's the price of admission. Like, if I love this person so much and like love all their qualities about them, why not just accept the good with the bad?
Did he tell his partner in this scenario that this is really annoying and can you put it in the sink? I'm just wondering. I just want the facts of this scenario.
I think that he must have said something because he said he spent years like complaining about it and then just stopped. I don't know if he said, I am going to stop complaining and just take care of this. I don't know if that's what happened, or if just a natural transition. But I loved that because I was like, you know what? There are some things that I think are annoying. They're not deal breakers. They're not like, I'm going to divorce you over this, you know? But there are little things that are just the things. And it's like, yeah, why can't I just go and rectify it if it's important to me?
So philosophically, I completely agree with this. Ted Like Talk, this guy you're talking about, philosophically, price of admission, I get it. We kind of like weigh in the cost benefits and is it really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular case, I'm just saying one thing. And again, I don't know context. I haven't heard the whole thing. My first thought is if I told my partner, I know maybe I'm just a bitter human being, but if I told my partner, why won't they just listen and do it either? So that would build resentment with me. I'm not trying to be too logical or too like face value. I'm just saying that's all. But I do understand philosophically what he's saying, and that I completely agree with.
Yeah, I think I can see both sides, having been on both sides. You know,
Right.
I can see what you're saying. And I think like there is the difference is like enabling behavior. So if we're enabling a behavior that's going to turn into a different behavior and get worse.
Exactly. You said exactly what I was thinking. Thank you for getting those thoughts out of my head. But that's exactly it.
You're welcome. I'll be here all week. Yeah, no, but I think there's a part of relationship building where you're in it together and there's giving and taking and there's in some ways coaching, right? And saying, hey, this is important to me. I need you to change. This is important to you. So I'm going to change. And then there's a part of like accepting too. And we've talked about this before. Like it's the same as raising a child. Like how much of it do you want to imprint and mold them for success, and how much do you want to imprint and mold them because it's convenient for us to have a child that's like us? It's easy for us. We got to strike that balance. And I think it's true with partners as well. I wanted to share with you this quote that I saw that I really loved. And it made me think about how we have expectations for our kids. We have expectations for our friends, for our lovers, for our partners, you know, parents, whoever they are. And it's by Thomas Merton. It goes, the beginning of love is to let those we love be perfectly themselves and not to twist them to fit our own image. Otherwise, we love only the reflection of ourselves we find in them. So I just love that, like letting go of our expectations and letting the other person be who they are. To really like find that balance of like, I'm going to give you the life skills to be successful and to be safe, but also let you make your own decisions. Like it's really tough. Parenting, being a child, and being a spouse, and all three of those, it's really hard. Like, how do you just let that other person be?
Yeah, it's a daily struggle in parenting, that's for sure. Where you want to help and where you want to let go. I do know that the more I appreciate my own value and how important it is to just be me, the more I want to see the same in others because I value that. I value people who are in sync with who they are and being themselves. So I, as a parent, at least try. I'm not saying I'm successful, but I try to let go when I can start to feel that I'm not letting Allie be. And that happens a lot. And, you know, we're just all learning. And there is no right or wrong. Every partner in every situation is different. You just know what you need to do to learn and grow from one another.
Yeah, totally. And I think like over time you get to know what's important to the other person as well. So you can get an idea of, is this something I should overlook or is this something that they can overlook? But by no means am I saying like you should be, no one out there should be in an abusive relationship. No one should like put their kids in danger and say like, oh, that's the price of admission. But just the little stuff, right? And I'm talking about like hanging the towel on top of the shower door instead of hanging it on a hook.
Right. We make compromises throughout. I mean, in the beginning of our marriage, you know, I wanted everything perfectly organized. And then at some point I'm like, you know what? That's just asking for too much. And, you know, Samir kind of has his own drawer in his own corner and he can do whatever, right? So, yeah. And then somehow I also kind of met him halfway because I'm not nearly as organized. So it worked out.
Yeah. And, you know, I thought that I was organized and needed organization as well. And I've realized over the years, and this is part of motherhood, I think, and tiredness as well, but I don't care about how, you know what? I'm going to blow your mind right now because you've known me for so long. I used to be, the biggest thing for me was like, get up, make the bed. That was like the first thing. And I married a guy that was like, why do you need to make the bed? And not to get on my nerves. Like he was legit like, help me understand why you need to make the bed. You're just going to get back into it. And I thought like when we first got married and I would get up and make the bed, when he got up last and he didn't make the bed, I was so like flabbergasted. I was like, oh my gosh, why would he not make the bed? Like, how, you know, like he didn't grow up with my mom, so he doesn't have that, that like, you know, diligent, like get up, make your bed. That's the first thing you do when you get up. And now I never make the bed. I actually get up, like he gets up before me most days because he gets up quicker once his alarm goes off. But he is home after I leave most days. And so he'll either be back in bed or he'll be, you know, whatever, like checking his phone or stuff like that in the bed. I don't know why I'm going into all this detail. This is so random. But anyway, sorry to get back on topic. When I get home and the bed's not made, I don't even think twice about it. I'm just like, oh, that's
wow.
Cool. I know. Isn't that amazing?
Y'all have come a long way in what, 20 years?
I know. Yeah, 18 years.
Yeah, see, I have to make the bed every morning and so does Samir. But we're on the same page. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I think that's like the best measure of if we were to go back 18 years from now, I would have never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever get over the whole bed making thing. And I am telling you, like, I don't even think twice about it. In fact, when I jump on our bed, like when I come home from work and I'm like, I want to lie down for a minute, you know, I jump on the bed and the pillows like aren't all fluffed and all stacked up, like all 6 pillows aren't stacked up. I don't even think twice about it. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, I'm not there. I probably never will be. I'm exactly where you were 18 years ago.
You're not there on that, but you're there on other things, I'm sure.
But you know what? I like making the bed, though. I can also answer the question. I mean, I'm one of those weirdos who will wake up at 4 a.m., remake the bed, and go back in because I like to reset the bed. It actually centers me. It's weird. I just feel like more comfortable to reset the bed a little.
No, I hear you.
But I understand. I'm being very like face value today. I do understand philosophically that you know what compromises to make, and you realize after making it that it actually works for you too. You're fine with it. And you learn a little bit about yourself along the way.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of makes you think like, I don't know if we had that discussion about, hey, now we're cool, we're going to not make the bed. My suspicion is like those 6 years of being pregnant and having kids that we did consistently, there were days that we didn't make the bed and we were just so exhausted and we got over it and it became like a new normal. I think the beauty of being on the same page and sharing your views is that you have the ability to fall into routines that work and it helps to run your household. I've never been a big fan of the whole like, we're like the CEO of the house, you know, because I hate business analogies for houses. Like that's not how your house should run. But I think for some things, there's definitely an aspect of like figuring out what your family needs and what each person needs. And the only way to do that, getting back to the original thing that I was talking to my friend about, is the communication.
Right. Communication, definitely.
Yeah. How to open up the communication. And that's like such an easy thing to say, like, oh yeah, communication, which really doesn't mean anything. But so I want to ask you, like, how do you break down barriers in communication?
So our big thing is we always just keep it real, even if it's everything. Like, you know me, I'm a communicator. Annoyingly so. I mean, a lot of former boyfriends couldn't take it. Former friends also like, oh my God, do we have to talk again? I'm like, yeah, we have to talk again. If you don't like it, then maybe we shouldn't be in a relationship. And these are other relationships, right? So we just, anything that's on my mind. I mean, I'll be completely candid. You know, there was a time when it had been a while since we were intimate. And I wasn't just going to let that become our new norm. So very quickly, you know, within a couple of weeks, I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. We haven't done anything. You know, is there anything going on with you? What's going on with me? We're busy. We just like to call it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome.
I'm just saying that I'm really big. No matter what's happening, I will communicate it, and I'll keep it as real as possible, and so will he.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we don't pretend. I think that's where right? Because let's say a situation where it's been a couple of weeks, but I'm not talking about it. I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on. Oh, I don't know what's going on with her. Okay, forget it. We're just not going to talk. Next thing you know, months go by, right? So you can't just pretend that the elephant's not in the room. You have to talk about it. And I chose a guy whom I can have that relationship with because I know how important it is for the health of that marriage.
That's awesome that you have that understanding and you kind of like, you're like self-checking, because it is really easy to fall into those patterns, especially if you have like one person is traveling a lot,
Right.
and, you know, both people are working, and then you add kids to the mix and in-laws and parents, and life is like really busy as it is with all these other activities. It's easy and convenient to just let things drop,
Yeah.
right? And just let it go.
And I try to keep it real also with what my needs are. You know, hey, you know, let's just say whatever's going on and I feel, I don't want to go into specifics, but I feel like he's not been doing something that I think is really important for me, you know? So I'll say, hey, blah, blah, blah. Is there something going on? This, that. Because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. If this continues, you know, it's human nature. You could deviate. I'm not talking about cheating or anything, but I'm just saying that we all have certain needs that need to be met. And if you don't communicate it, you have to be honest, and you're going to find another avenue to pursue it. And it's not just me. I ask him, too, what he needs from me.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Not many people would be able to or willing to like kind of throw that out there, but we know that that's how it happens, right? You're able to find you're missing something, and then you're looking for something else. And it kind of made me think about another thing. Like, Budham and I have a friend who's a pilot. He's learning how to fly, and he knows how to fly, but he's been doing some of his hours. And Budham went with him on like a flight to a town a couple hours away. And he was telling me about all the things that he had to do when he got into the plane, like systems check, you know, constantly checking the coordinates, making sure that they were going in the right direction and all that. And he was like, it's just fascinating because your brain is just like on. And I was talking to him about it, and I was like, that's like marriage, you know, like being in a successful marriage is as complicated as landing a plane, but we get no training. When you're training to be a pilot,
No, none whatsoever, right?
they're like, you have to do 1,000 hours or you have to do 500 hours,
Right.
you know?
If only you could just like be married to someone temporarily just to see if it works, right?
just to get the hours, like the flight log.
Yes.
And see if it's a trial run.
It's part of your biodata.
Well, I think like, yeah, wouldn't that be funny? But I mean, that's what a lot of these things are. And when going back to my friend, when I was talking to her and I was telling her, you know, the communication gets easier because being vulnerable and being open and really saying what you mean, first of all, those are hard. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable like that. Second, we're not really raised in such a way that we even know what our true feelings are.
Right, you have to have an honest conversation with yourself first, yeah.
Yes, and then you have to filter out the voice in your head that's like paranoid, and you have to filter out the voice in your head that's scared, because we can psych ourselves out of or into thinking different things. So first having that like really honest conversation, and then being able to have that honest conversation with your partner, and then your partner being open to it. I mean, think about all of the things that have to go right in order for the conversation to even be successful.
It makes it even more important to feel whole as a person before getting married. That's really, I'm not saying it's key because I don't know the keys, but I think that's really important, because then, like you just said, if you know where you stand, what your needs are, and what you want out of a relationship, then you're likely to attract that person into your life.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me of, you said earlier that Samir remembers like things that he read in a paper, but then he won't remember what happened 2 minutes ago. And I know I fully like disclose that I'm like that. But when I was in grad school, we did a lot of grounded theory work where we look at other people's research. And I remember reading this study that was done in Malaysia with minority women who had gone to grad school. And they were the first in their families to go to like post-secondary education. And what they found was that over 50% of them, either their marriages resulted in divorce or they were no longer happy in their marriages. And so the study was like, what's happening? Why, when women are going to get their master's or PhD, is it resulting in their marriages failing? And so the research stands out in my mind because the scientists went in thinking that maybe they spent so much time doing their PhD or their master's that they were neglecting family life, and that caused a rift in the relationship. And so it kind of makes sense, right? Like we can kind of imagine that you're really super, super busy and then your relationships suffer.
Yeah.
But what they actually found was that once the women went through that level of educational training and that level of exposure to new things, especially since they were the first in their family to go to college and then go on to graduate school, they found that they were no longer satisfied in their relationships because they wanted so much more out of life.
That makes sense.
It makes total sense.
And they had a better sense of self, too, right there.
Yes, and they got to know themselves. Yeah, you like totally landed the plane on that one. Pun intended.
But that's why I got married so late. I felt like this is a journey and I'm not just going to settle for the, first, second, third guy that comes my way.
Yeah, no, I think that, and then like that sense of self, like you said, it's only when we prioritize getting to know ourselves, what's important to us, understanding the world around us. And I can see how graduate school would do that for some people. Mm-hmm. I can see how like having kids and then having them go to school, like for a stay-at-home mom, when the first empty nest feeling that they get from 8 to 2 when their kids go to school, I can see how that would add to it. Yeah. And I think there's like a series of little life events where it's kind of a wake-up call, right? You have a death in the family and you're like, oh my gosh, what is life about? But without those external factors, how can you create an opportunity for self-awareness, and what are the things that we can do? You said that like you kind of waited to do it. I would say like I got married really young, so I never had that journey. I think going to school, grad school was probably part of it for me. Having kids that no longer need me because my kids really don't need me anymore is part of it too, like that shock. But I think it takes a lot for me to prioritize like, okay, I'm going to spend a day, I'm going to go do something for 2-3 hours in nature, walk around on my own, no phone, and really think about everything. Like that's hard. And I'm embarrassed to do it, to be honest. And I shouldn't be.
Wait, you're embarrassed to do what? To go out in nature and what?
Yeah, and to be like, I'm going to spend 2-3 hours on my own today, family. I'm like embarrassed. Like I will do it.
Okay, well, let's figure out why. Why are you embarrassed to do that?
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I will eventually do it and say, hey, I need me time. Yeah. But I'm still embarrassed as I ask, and I'm still embarrassed as I leave, and I feel guilty. So, and I'm doing it. So there are so many people out there who are not doing it.
Yeah, it's easy for me to look at what you're saying, say, well, I could do it. But I also I have one kid, one husband. I think the more responsibilities you have, more kids you have, more job engagements you have.
I only have one husband too, for our listeners. That might be
Okay, there's more than one. The cat's out of the bag. No, but seriously though, I could see why you'd be more guilty. You don't need to, but I could see why you would feel that way.
Yeah, you can kind of relate to that, right? And then you got to think like people out there who don't have any kids,
right?
And whether they're married or not, even for that, like sometimes people feel like, there's like a little bit of a Punjabi cultural thing too, or a Desi cultural thing. Like, why do you need alone time? Like, we've talked about this before. Like, what's so hard in your life that you can't manage? So. Right. I don't know what the deal is. Like, I wish our parents' generation would also take some me time.
Yeah. Well,
and explore.
My mom does, but yeah.
Does she? That's so cool.
I love that about her. Right when Alyssa was born, she was very she seemed to know exactly the balance between I'm going to come, I'm going to help you with Alyssa, but when I'm gone, and then I'm doing my thing. I admire that. I think I've taken from that. I think that's kind of helped in my development because we see a lot of grandparents who will just give up everything for their grandkids, which is fine. That's fine.
That's amazing. Like your mom's being upfront with you and she's being honest with you. So you don't have any like misunderstanding on expectations. And you're right. There are some grandparents out there who will be like, I'm going to give up my whole life and move, like sell my house and move closer to my kids so I can take care of my grandkids. And if they are doing it and they're happy and they're fulfilled, more power to them. I think it's amazing. I personally have witnessed where people do that and then they have resentment. Like, I gave up my life.
Yeah.
The kids, I'm just taking care of your kids all the time. You don't even pay me. You don't take it, you don't appreciate and stuff. And so I'm like, that's destroying your life. Like, that's destroying your relationship. And one of my friends yesterday was telling me that she read some article about how like up until the age of like 18, 90% of the people that you spend time with are students from school and your parents. And then after the age of 25, only 5% of your time do you spend with family and like parents and things like that. Just because, you go on with life, you spend so much time at work and it dramatically decreases.
Right.
And so I was thinking like people have these strange relationships because they don't talk about things. And that's it. Your remaining 5% of life, right, is what you are risking at that point.
Right. And it comes to it goes back to the same thing: communication with your spouse, communication with your children. Just communicate what is it that you want to make your life as happy as possible, and of course, ask them the same and what you could do to make their life better.
And I think totally. I just totally agree. And then practicing how to do that and self-reflecting on what you want to do too.
I would say that the grandparent who does all that and resents probably falls into the same pattern that they did their whole life, which is always putting other people first.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Like we've talked about enabling certain behaviors, right? And so they maybe are doing what their parents or in-laws did for them, and they think it's the norm, and they expect it to fulfill them.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like a lot of men and women expect that getting married and having kids will be fulfilling for them because that's the culture that we're raised in, is like...
That's just what we do. Right. And then something like a bunch of women, like you said, the Malaysian study where they go to school and they go to grad school and they have a higher degree, that'll change that status quo, that happiness factor.
Yeah, totally. And then maybe they will teach their children, if they had children, a different way.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. Going back to your mom, like the fact that she was straight up with you, something happened either in her life or something with her parents or her in-laws, right? Where she was like, yes, either they gave her advice, don't do this, or she was like, no, I'm not going to do what they did because I saw what the result was. But I love that she shared it with you. And I don't know if I'm curious, like, did she share that with you as a life lesson, or was that something that she just happened to share and you reflected on it later?
She shared the what with me. The why is kind of my interpretation because I know my mom, you know? So the what is like, this is what we're going to do, and this is when I'm going to come, and this is how many hours I'm going to come. I know the why because she does want her me time, and I respect that. Now, in her case, it's actually she was the person who put herself last, and because she did it her whole life, now she's like, not doing that anymore.
That's what your mom's kind of a boss.
She is. She really is. She's pretty awesome. She's awesome.
No, I think that's really awesome. And like, would we be able to have that kind of clear and distinct conversation with our own children? I'm really not sure, but I'll say one thing. The more we practice it with our spouses, with our friends, and with our parents and our family now, the better chance we have of being able to do something like that in the future. It kind of reminds me of Brene Brown. She's an amazing professor out here in Houston, and she talks a lot about vulnerability and shame and guilt and how we cope with having open relationships and how we have frank conversations with ourselves and with others. And one of the things I love in her new book is where she says that clear is kind. And she's basically saying that when we are clear and we make our expectations known to one another, that's the greatest kindness we can have with one another. So
I love that. Yeah, honesty and vulnerability. Both of those centers you. And I could see that centered feeling translating to kindness. So
this has been really great talking about communication and marriage, but I want to keep talking about marriages too, because it is the foundation of everything that we have to give to our children as well. So let's continue the conversation next time. And as always, thanks for listening.